Welcome back to the 2 by 2. This Friday, I am joined with Parm Sidhu, who is founder, consultant, making things happen. He is the founder of Storage Solution Pros, storagesolutionpros.com, which is one of Canada's biggest student storage solution companies. Started at the University of British Columbia while he was a consultant at Deloitte. He also is an independent consultant, and let him explain why in a second, that this is a nice balance between the student business and his consulting business, consults under the name of West Haven Partners. So Parm Sidhu, thank you for joining me today and welcome to the 2 by 2.
Thanks for having me.
So let's not start with Deloitte because that's not so fun. Let's start with the business. Tell us about student storage and kind of what the genesis of your idea was. Like, what did you see in the market? Were you a student yourself at the time, or did you come back to this after graduation?
Yeah, it was something we came up with after graduation. So I must have been 2.5, almost 3 years out of school when we had this idea. I'd say about 2 years out. So we weren't too far out, but also we weren't still students. Basically, the whole service is that we're kind of like a white glove moving and storage company. So if you, for example, live in a certain state, but you go to school in, let's say, New York, but you're from Seattle, we make sure that all your stuff, when you're transitioning out of maybe your first year of university or your second year, you don't have a place to put your stuff. Maybe you don't have an apartment lease for the whole year. You're just in kind of year-round housing, so 8 months. We give your stuff a place that's safe and secure, and we take care of all the hassle. So we actually come to your dorm, provide moving boxes and packing tape, any supplies you need to pack your stuff up. And then from there, on move out day, we collect everything. So we take the boxes, we take your mini fridge, your bike, all that sort of stuff. And we take it to our storage facility, store it over the summer or as long as you need. And then in September, whenever you return, we return everything right back to your door. So again, where we come right to your dorm room, we store it, and then we deliver it right back to your new residence. So it's a very seamless kind of business in terms of like addressing an actual issue that students have. And then the idea came about, as I said, 2 years out of school. My friend came to me actually and said, "Hey, this is an issue that I think a lot of our friends from our time at UBC, our university, actually faced. Why not address it?" And so we started at just UBC in our first year, and we had a lot of success, more than we thought. And we just thought to, double down. And from there on out, we've scaled to about 20 campuses nationwide now.
Okay, take me to the moment where you both had this epiphany. You're a consultant at Deloitte at the time, right?
Yeah.
So where did this happen? Was it at a party? Were you on an airplane, 3 a.m. in some client's office? Like, what was the situation?
Yeah, I was in Toronto on a work project when my friend called me, and it was about 1 a.m. I was in our office at the Deloitte office, and I was just like working away on like this presentation for the steering committee the next morning. Um, and I was just on the phone with my friend because it was just last minute edits we were doing. I was pretty much done. I was the last one. And he was telling me, he's like, "Man, you've been talking about wanting to do something and like get out of corporate for so long. I have this idea." And he kind of brought it to me. And that's when I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? Like, this project's wrapping up. I'm going to be on the bench for a little bit. Let's just experiment and see what's going on, and if it can actually be something.
Did you feel a sense of relief that you had just pressed the escape button? Like, I feel like, okay, so first of all, I didn't know that was the story. I just figured it was, because I find that we have these moments as consultants/entrepreneurs where the idea is the dopamine hit. And in these moments of deep stress, you're looking for some escape, and that's when the best ideas come. Did you feel that sense of relief right away? Or were you just like, yeah, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, it was so funny because this was the first business idea. And to give some context, I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. Like, I would scalp tickets in university and I would do a bunch of random stuff, but I got into consulting because I knew that I wanted to know how businesses operate, how people provide advisory to like top businesses so I could run my own one day. But at this point in my career, I was like 2 years in, I hadn't thought of like a business idea yet. And then when this came, it was the first one, and a friend had proposed it. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, let's do it. And I still remember actually thinking, we got our first sale. We had put up flyers around campus, and one girl had scanned it, and then she paid like a $20 deposit. And as it's so funny, like we talk about moments of epiphany, that was the one where I said, okay, we just got our first sale. I think I could quit my job and do this full time like one day and go all in on it. um, that was my kind of moment. And then in terms of like that day when I was working on the Steerco deck, and my friend had called me, I was just super excited. And I was like, yeah, this could totally work. And then once you actually start working in the business, you're like, oh my God, this is so much work. And that's when like reality kind of hits.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a common point too of I've sold something or I've decided to start this idea without a sale, which is I think what a lot of people do. And then the checklist goes bonkers because you have to stand up all of the admin and operations of the business, the website, the marketing, and it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. How did you, he's smiling for those of you not watching this on YouTube. How did you guys push through that period? Like, was it, you had a partner, but was it sheer will or like you had already made sales, so you didn't have a choice? Like a lot of people would just say, this is like, I didn't sign up for this. I'm like with a blue chip firm. I'm going to go back to free lunches. Like, why would I sweat with these boxes? Like, what made you keep going?
It was really the fact that it felt like my own thing. It felt like my baby. I mean, I think one thing that consulting you're just exposed to when you work in a career like consulting or banking or anything is you learn to work hard almost like, not that anyone that goes into it isn't already a hard worker, but when you're working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, you become more conditioned to it. And so for me, it wasn't like I was scaling up in terms of work. It all felt the same. I would actually say that lifting up heavy boxes and doing all this sort of stuff, I think we'd spoken previously, but on our move out weekend, we moved, I don't even know how many pounds of boxes. Like I couldn't quantify it. I just remember the next day I was so sore that I took a day off work because my body was just aching. But the entire time, and even the day after, I felt this high that I hadn't felt working in consulting the entire time. And it was all because it was my own thing. And I was seeing the fruits of my labor in terms of, happy customers, happy parents, just like the logistical flow, everything flowing smoothly, pickup after pickup after pickup. So everything that I planned for was kind of unfolding in front of me. And that's what brought me a lot of satisfaction, kind of made me want to go like all in on it. In terms of, I would say like, um, you know, the website and all the admin stuff. That was definitely a scaling issue. We put up a website. I just started like the Squarespace site. It was super basic at the start. There was no backend. We were doing everything on Excel in terms of tracking orders. So it was a bit of a nightmare to learn how to use Canva to do our marketing. Then we started going out on campus and like filming each other, doing social media content just to gain awareness of our brand. And all of that was such a fun journey. Um, so yeah, it was just fun.
Did you go onto the bench at Deloitte or were you doing this while in your on your nights and, whatever nights you had and weekends?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was gonna be going on the bench, like no project for, I didn't know how long. That's when we had this idea, and when we were distributing kind of flyers and going around campus, I was on the bench, but a project started like literally not a week after. And so I didn't have any downtime. And so when we started this business and it was going full force, I was in the midst of a client project and flying every week. And so I would come back on a Thursday night, and Thursday night I would go to the campus and start handing out empty boxes to the kids that were like delivering our empty boxes. And I would do that Fridays as well, Saturday, Sunday, and then Sunday night, I'd fly out. And after work every day, I'd be answering emails, responding to calls that I'd missed throughout the day. So but it didn't feel like work. It was so exciting. It was such an exciting time.
I like to describe the Keenan Reed Strategies network of consultants as a band of like intelligent misfits. Okay. Like all of us are consultants by day, entrepreneurs by night. And there's some patterns in this group of people. Number one is they all had a business as a child, not a business their parents gave them, but some hustle that they had. Okay. Ticket sales is one. Selling lemonade is an obvious one. One woman was collecting golf balls on a golf course and then reselling them and like setting up a golf ball stand. I mean, so that's one, business as kids. Number two is that all of them have this ability where their extra work doesn't feel like work. It feels like the hobby or the fun thing. And so they've been able to do their consulting work while they fit in this other piece, not because they're trying to fit it in, but because it is like the fun thing that they do in their life. The other one, you mentioned the flying home from the client. The flying home from the client and then immediately transitioning into that work is something I've heard as well. Like the flight gets timed so that the other obligation can be met to meet or call the clients. And that happens in these pockets on nights and weekends. And actually, student businesses are a great one for this because for them, calling them at 10 o'clock is not a big deal. That's when they're awake, right? They're not going to take your call at 9 o'clock in the morning anyway. So it works out really well. That's crazy. How long did you keep up this insane schedule? Like the whole first summer?
Yeah, the whole first summer. And then the second year as well. The second year as well, I believe. Everything starts to blur together after a while. The second year was hard because we had scaled. We weren't just at one campus anymore. We had tested it out and we were expanding. And so it was a lot to kind of manage work plus this at the same time. And that's when I kind of made the decision. I was like, okay, this is the last year I can do this. I need to go all in if this is going to become an actual business. So yeah, that was kind of the inflection point for me.
And then now you've scaled to 20 campuses and you're only 3 years in, correct? Three, 4 years? Yeah. So
Before,
tell
yeah.
me about I mean, that's a big scale from 1 or 2 to 20. You can't physically be moving boxes across 20 campuses anymore. So how did you set up the infrastructure to do that?
Yeah. We invested a lot into technology. We made sure that our tech platform for students and parents, for our movers, and for our campus managers was very robust and had its checks and balances. And I think like that's one thing that I learned in consulting. Like everything comes down to processes and SOPs. If those are in place and then you actually take the time to train your staff on them, hold their hand at the beginning, you'll have success. But if you kind of let things run amok, you don't have systems, no procedures, things are going to fail and crash and burn, and you're just going to be stressed out 24/7. And I just don't like being, I think the only time you're stressed is if, I mean, one of the big times is if you're unprepared. And so we did everything that we could to prepare for, 1,000 kids moving out across the country all in
Oh,
1 week.
okay. Yeah, 1,000. And does all of this happen in 1 week in Canada, or do you have is it a month on the front end and a month on the back end? Like it's not the full year. It's just these incredible spikes of time. But how big are those spikes?
They all happen relatively within one weekend. I would say 1 to 2 weekends. So this weekend is a big one. Next weekend is the one where we're going to have hundreds of move outs across Canada, all between Friday and Sunday. And then obviously there's a few days where maybe there's, 5 pickups in Toronto on like a random Wednesday because there's one set of kids who are finishing their exams on that day and then have their flights booked out. But otherwise, the peaks are very high. Same with move in.
Are you hiring student labor? Like how are you finding the weekend labor?
Yeah, it's a lot of students, also movers, or just people. We kind of just put out job postings on job posting boards. But a lot of our work, we want to work with students because this is a company for students. No one understands their problems more than students do. And we want to be able to give back. One thing that we do at our company, myself and my co founder have backgrounds in finance and consulting. And so if a student, and also our networks, like we know tons of lawyers, doctors, engineers, people have gone to like Harvard Med or Yale Law and whatnot. And so when we hire students, we also ask them, what it is that they are looking for professionally. Because my thinking is if someone is willing to, help us, we want to help them, especially because they're the youth and they're kind of our future. So that's our way of kind of like also giving back.
Do you make the hook like lift our boxes and we'll introduce you to the friend at Deloitte? Like is it that overt or
No, no, no. It's more so just like, if they get hired and they do a really good job, like we see that potential. It's just like any kind of referral, right? Like if someone reaches out to you and has a networking call and they're just a great candidate, like you want to see them succeed versus someone who's just kind of like didn't come prepared, is kind of lackluster. You don't want to introduce them to your network because that's a poor reflection on yourself as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I like to have interns for the same reason, not because they really deliver a lot of extra work for the business, but because I, the good ones give great ideas that we never would have thought of, like a completely different perspective. But mostly it's because I really do like working with them and I like kind of helping them and seeing them through that period of development. I really like to bring in people who are either juniors in high school or kind of sophomores in college. I feel like those 2 years are very transformative because it's when you find someone who is innately self motivated and who's genuinely curious. Those are real transition years because by your senior year in college, in high school, you're doing your college applications. And by your junior year in college, you're really thinking about your major. And I call them, quote, real internships, like with a brand name. But I think they have a lot of value to add back to us. It's interesting though, like your business self-selects for people who bring hustle and hard work because they're not going to do one weekend of carrying boxes unless they have that hustle. So by nature, and if you're recruiting on campus, you get, the students who really have that already, who may not necessarily have the connections or the finances where they don't need to take a job like that. So you're finding some great ones. All right. I want to ask the great connector question. How did building your own business change how you think as a consultant?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think going from consulting to running a business was such a big leap because consulting teaches you to think at such a high level for these Fortune 500 companies. You're working on the most strategic projects you could possibly imagine, or some sort of like M&A deal, or a CDD, like a due diligence project, something like that. Um, versus running a business, there's so many things. It's just a mess. It could be a mess because you're handling every function of every business. Versus consulting, it's typically you're advising the office of the CFO, the CSO, the CI. Like, you're focused on one function. So now, having run a business, I think going back into consulting kind of almost remove the fluff. I feel like I know how to talk to business owners better because there's no consulting jargon. It's like, this is what you need to do to make your business better. It's very straightforward. I almost translate. I also know how an owner thinks now. They want to see impact, not just fancy slides. And so I'd say that's the biggest kind of takeaway I've had now.
Yeah, I think the same. The level of practicality I enforce and expect is wildly different. And that for me directly relates to revenue and cash, right? When you work for a big firm and you work in a fancy office and you're getting a decent paycheck, the day by day stress of not having cash for your business, it's not something you felt before. When you felt that, it lets you advise in, I think, a much, much, much more impactful way. Not, yeah. And number one, it's because the owner or the client sees the authenticity. You understand it. Like, but also because you felt it and you kind of know what works and what doesn't. It's like I get frustrated when I see people that give me the right answer, but that don't bother to find the workaround. Like in real life, you know that you need to market and you know you need a system and you know you need the SOP. But what you did was put it on the board and sat there. You didn't leave and just drop it. You sat there and you watched. And then you saw who did it and you saw how they did it. And that piece of information, then my guess is you used to repeat, that informed a whole bunch of other decisions and actions that you took. But if you're a consultant, and you don't have a business and you don't understand that piece, you may have skipped that step entirely and just built the process to go hang the flyers without understanding all of those things. And I think that's like one of the most valuable things we provide. In your consulting business now, do you work with, who do you work with? Do you work with smaller businesses or kind of what stage?
Yeah, it's smaller businesses, and then a lot of times we'll get contracted from like PwC, Deloitte, EY to come on. for specific kind of engagements, kind of related to my background.
Yeah. How do you find clients on your own?
A lot of it is just word of mouth. Like doing good work for one person will bring more good work. So if someone likes the impact that I've made, they'll actually go, and I've gotten like the most is I've gotten like 4 leads from one client, all in different industries. Actually, like one was a truck repair shop that was like, we have several of these facilities, like we need help. Like, what can you do for us? And they have an idea of what they want, and then it becomes like a whole sit down, and it's interesting.
Yeah. I call those people our evangelists, the people who will refer you over and over and over and over and over again. Some of them, for me, have become great. Like they're just friends at this point. Like it's not like I need to market to them. Some of them though are still like professional relationships, but they tend to bring you back. And those are the people that I think to have a long and healthy consulting business, if you can build and cultivate this set of evangelists, you really don't, and it's just you, like you really don't need anything else. You can make this a career for the rest of your life. So, okay, any plans to go, like, you're in a happy spot. You've got 4 weeks a year where, I mean, it's not 4 weeks to do the marketing run up to it, but 2 pockets of time during the year where you have a good sized business keeping you happy, covering your lifestyle. And then the rest of the year, you cover your intellectual curiosity with work, consulting work. You have any plans to expand? You're still early. So for those of you not watching, Parm is young, under 30, long time ahead of you. Keep going, hand this off to someone. Where do you see it headed?
Yeah, I think one thing is that I'm super happy with the Canadian market. I don't know if we have plans to expand heavily into the US, honestly, but I know that we haven't capped out our maximum potential in Canada. And so one thing that is a big goal of mine is to increase penetration at every university campus that we're at. So we're at the 20 biggest Canadian universities, but I want to increase our overall kind of penetration in each market. And so that really comes down to marketing efforts and really becoming an expert in that respect. So that's kind of where I see this going over the next few years. And I think that that's going to keep my hands full for quite a while.
So we're looking in the next few years ahead, you're not a take over the world type. That's good. I think it's lovely, like to have this niche and it's low stress and you've got a rhythm and you're the market leader. I mean, I was thinking back, was this a problem when I was in college? And the answer was there was a storage solution. It was not as hands on. Like I don't remember anyone delivering boxes. And I'm pretty sure I did a little thinking. I'm pretty sure I had to take my boxes somewhere, which could not have been easy.
No,
But was this a complete gap in the market?
it was because no one wants to like imagine you're an 18-year-old freshman in university, your parents are a million miles away, and you have to figure this out all by yourself. Like that's kind of a stress, and you're in the middle of final exam
Yeah.
schedule, final exam season. Do you really want to rent a U-Haul? Do you really want to go buy boxes and have this hassle hanging over your head? No, like you want someone who's gonna rent the U-Haul for you, or rent the U-Haul themselves, give you the boxes. You never have to leave your dorm so you can stay studying or, hang out with your friends. Like it's something that a lot of students, there was just a big gap in this market, and we addressed it.
What were they doing before? Were they shipping everything home or were they really renting U-Hauls and like self-solving?
Yeah, it was really just renting U-Hauls themselves, or they, asked a number of their friends, like, can we do something together? And then one friend would sort it out. But just really inefficient solutions, or a lot of people would sell stuff. They would go on Facebook Marketplace and start selling their belongings. But even that is like a process because, you have to schedule a time. If you have a million things, it takes you so long to sell. So this is just the most convenient solution.
It's interesting. My stepson went to university in London and there was nothing like that. Even though it's interesting, they have a really well-defined student housing system. They have companies who have student apartments, which are their dorms, but the storage aspect was not there at all. He had to get a second cousin who had a van. You can imagine like finding someone who has a vehicle there is not always easy. Find a van and then they would move Sajjan's belongings into I guess they own some shops or something, like into their warehouse and into a whole room in their house, which is not, a big American or Canadian house, right? It's like a small flat. It's not a flat, it's a house, but like a small house in London. Yeah, it was shocking that didn't exist. Well, I love that you found this. And thanks for sharing your story with me. Where do you want to direct traffic to find you?
Yeah, you can find me my LinkedIn, Parm Sidhu, or reach out Parm at westhavenpartners.com. I'm always happy to chat business, consulting, life, anything.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Parm. I really appreciate the time today. That's it.
Okay, that's awesome.